Hey guys, thank you so much for choosing the Short-Term Shop for your next short-term rental acquisition. My name's Avery Carl. I'm the founder of the Short-Term Shop and a real estate investor, obviously. And my husband Luke and I have 205 doors, and we were able to get from 0 to 205 over the course of about 5.5 years because 5 of our first 6 investments were short-term rentals. So because short-term rentals cash flow so much heavier than traditional long-term rentals, we were able to grow our portfolio much more quickly than if we'd started with traditional long-term rentals. And that's our goal for you too. We want to make you successful with your short-term rentals so that you can grow your portfolio more quickly and with more flexibility in any way that you want to. On our second short-term rental purchase, we realized that there weren't really any agents in the space who specialized in this or who could really even answer our questions like how to find a cleaner or how much a property should make. So on our second deal, I got my license, bridged that gap, and became that agent and started what would eventually become the Short-Term Shop. We have 55 agents in 14 markets, which we'll get to in a minute. And we specialize in short-term rentals. So we don't take any type of client other than short-term rental buyers and sellers. So we don't take any primary home buyers or sellers, no long-term rentals, only short-term rental investors. Most of our agents are short-term rental investors. If not, they are at least real estate investors in general, other types of real estate. And those of them that are not quite there yet are on their way to owning short-term rentals. So all of our agents are experts in the market that they work in short-term rentals. And working with one of our agents is really like working with our entire team. All of our agents are an extension of us, and you have an entire team of specialists at your disposal. We also started the mortgage shop more recently to really create a one-stop shop for you guys as investors. So the mortgage shop also specializes in short-term rental investors, and we have lots of great products over there. So check that out. We have a lot of resources for you here at the Short-Term Shop in terms of education and just general short-term rental community. Of course, our main focus is that we focus on buying and selling short-term rentals. So we focus on connecting investors with short-term rentals. We actually connected investors with over $1.5 billion in short-term rental investments in the past 12 months. We also have a masterclass that's available to you guys. So if you are not ready to buy a house and you just really want to learn more, we have a 5-week masterclass at stsmasterclass.com. And it's a 5-week course. We meet once a week for 5 weeks, and you learn everything from how to analyze a property, how to choose a market, all the way down to how to manage and all of that stuff. I also have my podcast, The Short-Term Show. We also have the mortgage shop that I mentioned on the last slide, my book, Short-Term Rental, Long-Term Wealth. We have a YouTube channel and a Facebook group with over 33,000 members. So lots of great information being shared there as well. The best thing about the Short-Term Shop is that if you buy with us in any of the markets that we work in, we will teach you everything you need to know about managing your property remotely. So that's everything from setting up your Airbnb and Vrbo listings to learning how to use all the property management software to automate and streamline your processes so that you don't have to spend a lot of time on these things, all the way down to helping you source your local boots on the ground like cleaners, handymen, etc. We do all of that while you're still under contract with us. So once we get through your inspection period and we know that, okay, the house isn't falling down, we're going to close on this, you'll go to Management Monday with Luke, and he will teach you all of this stuff while you're still under contract so that when closing day comes, you're ready to close, turn the key, and start making money. If you choose to use one of our agents in any of the markets that we work in, then you'll have access to that whole training program that we talked about, where we'll teach you how to manage your short-term rental. So we're in 14 of the top short-term and vacation rental markets in the country. We're in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. We are in 4 markets in North Carolina. We are in what we call the Smoky Mountain, North Carolina market, which is that entire southwestern corner of North Carolina. So towns like Maggie Valley, Bryson City, Waynesville, Murphy, Silva, all those little areas. Now, we're also in the high country, which is Banner Elk, Boone, Blowing Rock, Sugar and Beach Mountains areas. Then we're in 2 coastal North Carolina markets. We're on the Outer Banks, and then we're also in what we call our Carolina Beach or Topsail Beach market, which covers all of the North Carolina coastline that is not part of the Outer Banks. We're in 3 markets in Florida. The biggest of which is going to be the Emerald Coast. So that's Destin, Panama City Beach, 30A, Pensacola, Navarre, Perdido areas. We're then one market east of that in the Forgotten Coast. I actually bought my most recent one in Cape San Blas in the Forgotten Coast. So Forgotten Coast is Cape San Blas, Port St. Joe, Mexico Beach, and St. George Island. Then we are down outside of Orlando in what we call our Disney market in Kissimmee and Davenport, Florida. We're also in Blue Ridge, Georgia, Gulf Shores, Alabama, Galveston and Crystal Beach, Texas, Broken Bow, Oklahoma, the Hill Country of Texas, and then also Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Now let's talk about the state of the market. So in 2022, it is the best time to be able to buy a short-term rental in the past 2 years. So last year in 2021, we were seeing multiple offers on every single property, sometimes up to 50 offers on every property. So there was no ability to negotiate. Sellers had all the power. Buyers were just having to take what they could get. Now, the market has slowed down some because of interest rates. There is some fear in the market on both the buyer and the seller side. So now is the serious real estate investors' time to shine. Now you can offer under asking, you can negotiate, you can have sellers pay your closing costs and do all of that normal real estate investor stuff that unfortunately the past 2 years has been really, really difficult to do. So now's a really, really great time to invest. You do still have to run your numbers and make sure that the numbers work for you. But in terms of actually being able to negotiate with sellers, it is a really fantastic time to be buying short-term rentals. Because we operate in a lot of different markets, I'll often get the question or the statement of, hey, I don't really care which market you put me in. I want to be in the market that has the highest return on investment. So just put me there. So it's really impossible to say that any one market is overall better or worse than any other market, no matter what. It's really more of a case-by-case basis. It's by individual property. So what I mean by that is that a similar return on investment can be achieved in any market, but where you're going to be seeing big differences are purchase prices and gross annual income. So in some markets, you might see a purchase price of $600,000 and that property might gross you $90,000. In other markets, you might see really crazy gross annual income numbers like $300,000 a year. Well, it's probably going to take you 1.6, 1.7 million in purchase price to be able to get those properties. So percentage-wise, a similar return on investment can be achieved in any of the markets. It's just what your goals are in terms of income and also in purchase price that will determine it. So you're more than welcome to look with us in as many markets of ours as you would like simultaneously. And I would recommend, though, maybe limiting that to 3 markets, just because if you're looking in more than 3 at a time, you can kind of get shiny object syndrome and really paralyze yourself with looking and not actually doing. Another big one that I get a lot is, hey, I'm on a budget, but I really want to get into the short-term rental game. Which markets are best for me in terms of price point? Now, I'm not going to say that any real estate in 2022 is really affordable or cheap or any words like that, but there are some markets that are a little easier to get into budget-wise than others. If you want to be in a mountain market, either of our 2 North Carolina markets, so the Smoky Mountains in North Carolina or the high country of North Carolina, are going to be the lowest price point in terms of getting in on a mountain market. In terms of beach markets, if you prefer a single family home, Crystal Beach, Texas, and either of the 2 North Carolina beaches, whether that's the Outer Banks or the Carolina Beach market, are going to be the best bang for your buck there. And then last but not least, if you are looking for a condo, then anywhere along the Emerald Coast in Florida or Gulf Shores, Alabama is going to be the best place for a condo. So Emerald Coast, again, remember, is Destin, Panama City Beach, 30A, Pensacola, Navarre areas. Another big one that I get is, I don't care which market you put me in. I just want to have the highest occupancy rate possible. I want all occupancy, no vacancy. So occupancy rate is very important, but there is a metric that is more important than occupancy rate, and that is gross annual income. So an example that I like to give around this is Luke and I own a 4-bedroom cabin in the Smoky Mountains. We also own a 4-bedroom beach house a few blocks off the beach in Destin, Florida. We bought those in the same year for roughly the same price. Expenses are really similar. The Smoky Mountain house has an 80% occupancy rate, and the Destin house has a 67% occupancy rate. So a lot of people would say, oh, that Smoky's house is the better investment. Well, the Destin house consistently makes about $60,000 more a year than the Smoky's house at a much lower occupancy rate, because the Destin house is seasonal. It operates mainly between March and the end of October. So it just makes all of its money in that high season. I give you guys this example so that you're not scared of seasonality. I see people in forums all the time say things like, oh, I really want to invest in this market or that market, but I heard it's seasonal. Seasonality is okay as long as the income is there to make your return on investment the number that you need it to be. So occupancy rate, while important, is not the most important metric when it comes to short-term rental investing. A coastal market can be a really, really good investment, as illustrated by my Destin property. And if you're somebody who wants to be able to use the property yourself a decent amount without cutting into your income, then a coastal market or a more seasonal market might be a really good opportunity for you. So don't be afraid of seasonal markets as long as that income is there. Another important thing to think about is regulation. So regulations in all the markets that we work in. So we only work in markets that are mature vacation rental markets. And what I mean by that is these are not markets that up until 10 years ago, all of the tourists that came here were staying in hotels and now they're staying in short-term rentals. These are areas where short-term rentals have been the primary form of tourism accommodation for decades and decades. Like, I live in Destin, Florida, and there were vacation rentals here on the beach before there was even electricity here. So these are areas where typically there are more short-term rentals than there are primary homeowners who live here. They've been around for a really long time. So the cities and counties figured out how to monetize that decades ago, so that now they're making so much money off of them, it would be way too detrimental to ever regulate against them. So the short-term rental income is just woven into the fabric of these local economies so heavily that it would just never really work for them to regulate against them, because there would be A, no accommodations for tourists, and B, the tourism industry on which all of these markets depend wouldn't exist because there would be no accommodations for them. So all that to say, really, really friendly areas in terms of regulations. Another important topic to cover is rental history. So because all of these markets have had vacation and short-term rentals in them for so long, they have also had property management companies in them for a very, very long time. And a lot of those guys were having a lot of success in the 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s without the use of online travel agencies or OTAs such as Airbnb and Vrbo. And they didn't have to use those companies back in the last few decades, and they were making a ton of money without them. So they're not adapting their business models to use those platforms now, whether it's because they just don't want to pay for them, or it's partly out of protest because platforms like Airbnb and Vrbo give investors like you and I the ability to bypass that third party and be able to keep most of our cash flow for ourselves so that we can grow our portfolio more quickly. So most property managers, the big local guys, do not use those platforms. Because of that, they're only relying on their own independent websites in order to get bookings. And when you think about it, if you want to go on vacation to maybe Panama City Beach, you're probably not opening up Google, opening up 275 different Google tabs to accommodate all of the, or most of the vacation rental companies in that market, and toggling back and forth between all 275 and comparing inventory and comparing fees. You're probably not doing that. You're probably just picking up your phone, going right on Airbnb or VRBO and booking your property and moving on. So what I don't want to happen is for you guys, because when a property hits the market, if it's been on one of these big property management companies, a lot of the time the rental history will be listed. So what I don't want to happen is for you guys to pass over what could be a really good opportunity because the rental history that's listed is low. This is going to sound a little bit crazy to some of you who are newer, but to me, rental history means basically nothing. It is one random data point. It is not anything other than what one random person has been able to do with one random property. The success of the property is really more dependent on the manager and how it's managed than the property itself. So an example that I like to give surrounding this is on mine and Luke's second short-term rental investment. We had a lot of things working against us. One, we were inexperienced. We'd only owned our first one for maybe 3 months. Two, we had no money. We did not have enough money to even get professional photos of that listing. So we used my iPhone 4, I think we were on at the time, iPhone 4 photos to market it. And then third, that property could not get any type of internet, period, not even satellite internet, because the trees were in the way. So we had a lot working against us on that one. The previous owner's management company had done about $23,000 a year the previous 3 years. All we did when we bought it was switch it from that local management company to self-management on Airbnb and Vrbo. And we did $45,000 our first year with bad pictures, no updates, and no access to internet. And that same property did $80,000 for us last year. So I give you guys that example so that you understand that it's not necessarily the property that determines the success, it's how it's managed. It's assuming you don't buy a piece of crap, but that's why the short-term shop exists. So we're going to make sure that you buy something that you are going to be able to manage and manage well so that you can optimize that income. So now you're probably asking yourself, well, if rental history is not necessarily indicative of future performance, then how do I know what a property should make? So there are several data sources for you to use that can help you determine that. We actually provide you with the AirDNA data for all the markets that we work in for the past several years. For those of you who don't know what AirDNA is, it is a data company that specializes in measuring the performance of short-term rentals that are on Airbnb and Vrbo. There are two reasons why that is important for you. One, because now we're not looking at one random data point, we're looking at the data for the entire market. So you're able to see what, if you're looking for 4 bedrooms, you're able to see what all of the four bedrooms in the market did. Also, you're now comparing apples to apples. So you're going to be managing using Airbnb and Vrbo, and AirDNA measures all the properties that are on Airbnb and Vrbo. So now you're comparing apples to apples instead of comparing apples to the oranges of a property management company that only uses their independent website to get bookings. I recommend, when it comes to AirDNA, using an average of 2019, 20, and 21 when running your numbers, because 2021 was a bit of a high year. So definitely use an average of those 3 years. Also, typically self-managed properties will hit at least the 75th percentile numbers. So I would use that average of the 75th percentile when analyzing. Also, there are a few other places that you can get this market-wide data from different sources. Rabbu is one, RABBU. That one is free. There's also a paid data service called strinsights.com that also has really good data. It is paid, but we do have a discount code for short-term shop clients, and it is STSVIP15. So if you want to buy STR Insights, it is promo code STSVIP15. It's a pretty cool data tool too. But again, what you want to do is look at as much data as possible, use that average of 2019 through 2021 and 75th percentile, and you'll be able to get a good range of what your property should be able to do. Now, there are a lot of things that data can't tell you. Like, data can't tell you what the property looks like in photos that determines how much it gets booked. It can't tell you what the quality of the photos are. Are the photos really blurry, and is somebody's finger in the frame, and is the house falling down and the paint peeling off and the shutters falling off and it looks like a total haunted house that nobody will ever rent. So in conjunction with the data, you want to use what we at the short-term shop call the enemy method. And when you are enemy methoding, what you're doing is you're zooming in on the property that you plan to buy and checking out your enemies or your neighbors. Neighbor method is not nearly as fun to say as the enemy method, so it's the enemy method. And what you're doing is looking for why the data says what it says and kind of where your property might fall on that performance spectrum. So for example, if you're checking out a 4-bedroom property and your neighbor is also 4 bedrooms, and it's that property that I was describing previously. So the paint's peeling off, there's shingles coming off the roof, the shutters are falling off, there's broken windows. People probably aren't booking that property a lot. So you can pretty much bet that you're going to get a higher price per night than that property, because you are going to have a nice property. Conversely, if there's a 4-bedroom next door to yours and it's like the most beautiful 4-bedroom that anyone's ever seen, and they're offering a private jet, private chef, private chauffeur, well, you're probably not going to be able to get as high of a price per night as that property because you're not offering all of those services. So you're using the data to kind of figure out that range of performance, and then you're using the enemy method to kind of figure out where you might fall on that spectrum. And you can use the enemy method for a lot of other things as well, like seeing what the average cleaning fee is. You can check out people's calendars, but typically properties don't book out more than 5 weeks in advance. So if you're looking, if you're enemy methoding in July and you're looking at next January, you're probably not going to see a whole lot of bookings. So don't let that deter you. But anyway, the data plus the enemy method is how you analyze what a short-term rental should be able to make in any market. And that concludes our FAQ video. If you guys have any questions, need any help with anything, send us an email at agents@theshorttermshop.com. If you want to get connected with an agent in a new market, if you have questions, comments, complaints, we are here for it, and we respond during business hours. During the week. So again, if you have any questions, hit us at agents@theshorttermshop.com. Also, be sure that you join the Short Term Shop Buyers Club on Facebook. So that is a private Facebook group for our clients only. There are 6,000 past clients in there from every experience level, from just having opened their first short-term rental last week to people who own 30 short-term rentals that are paid off, and that's what they do for a living. So anything you want to hear the experience about from other investors, it's a really great place to post. Lots of great information sharing. And again, it's private for our clients only. So make sure that you fill out all the questions when you join. And we're really happy to have you. We're looking forward to helping you guys acquire your next short-term rental, and happy cash flowing.